Hey everyone, this is Greg with Spotted Tongue Woodworking, and welcome to part 2 of my live edge slab with epoxy inlay. In the previous video, I prepared the slab by sealing the ends and the bottoms of this slab and preparing the insides with a thin layer of Miracast System 3 epoxy. Mixing the two-part epoxy means you have to stir. As you can see, when I first put it in, it's very cloudy. The more I stir it, the clearer it becomes as the air bubbles dissipate from inside the epoxy mixture. I will be adding sky blue pigment to the epoxy. Like mixing the two parts of the epoxy together, you also have to make sure you mix the pigment thoroughly through the epoxy in order for consistent color throughout the entire piece. As you can see, I'm using a very small mixing cup, and that will come back to bite me very soon. Once I finished mixing the epoxy up, I realized I forgot to take care of a very important step in my previous time of leveling the slab. Two axes of level, side to side and end to end. So I brought out my two levels to try to level it on my makeshift stand that I have this slab sitting on. Thankfully, the epoxy has a long pot life of a working pot life of at least an hour. I believe it's an hour to 90 minutes. So I knew I had a little bit of time to make sure that I had the slab nice and level to ensure that there were no runs and no pooling as I poured the epoxy. Now that the slab is nice and level, I will begin pouring my epoxy, and it is here that I realize I'm gonna need a lot more. And do I mix more epoxy in a larger container? No, I just mix a little bit more in the same container. And I'm going to need a little bit more. I did not realize how large the void went through this slab. The other side, it's barely a sliver poking through, but I don't know all the little nooks and crannies that this epoxy is soaking into that I had hoped I had sealed up with my seal coat in the previous episode. Something that does take a little bit of practice and something that I have to work on is how epoxy pours. It doesn't pour quickly, it doesn't pour slowly. It's somewhere in the middle where you can pour it and it won't react, and then all of a sudden it'll start to poke out one end. As you can see, I did not have my slab entirely level and it began pooling at one end. Once I had all the voids filled and it seemed like no more epoxy was seeping through, I took out a hairdryer. I did not have a blowtorch or a heat gun to try to work out the air bubbles. Again, thankfully, because this epoxy has such a long working life, it does not cure very quickly. It gives ample time for all the bubbles to come out. And there it is. These are the two pieces of the slab that I'll have to figure out how to join together and how I want to cut it to maximize my yield. And that blue is stunning against this elm. It's probably not the cleanest epoxy pour you've ever seen, but I can guarantee it's not the messiest you've ever seen. And here's a sneak peek of the home office. All the painting is done, the flooring is in, ceiling is up. We'll be using a temporary desk while I finish the slab and the base, and hopefully soon we'll have a finished product to show. Thanks everyone for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.